Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, Browns Bears preview edition, full preview pod coming your way. Lance Reisland is going to join us to give his scouting report. We'll make our picks, but of course, as we do every week, Dan Labbe, Mary Kate Cabot, Ashley Bastock here with you to lead things off. We're going to look at storylines for this football game between the Browns and the Bears. So Mary Kate, why don't you start us off? What are you watching on Sunday?
Well, as I've mentioned, my storylines probably for the next 4 weeks of the season are going to be about Shedeur Sanders going out there and trying to prove to the Cleveland Browns that they don't need to draft Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, or any of the top quarterbacks in this draft. He's got the opportunity. I thought he took great and tremendous strides against the Titans to show the traits that can be what you would want from your franchise quarterback. The elite accuracy, just the moxie, all the different things that he did in that game. I thought he took tremendous steps forward in that regard, but now he's got to go out there and do it again. And he's got to go out there and do it against a team that leads the NFL with 18 interceptions and leads the NFL with 27 takeaways. So this is going to be a tall order on the road on Sunday against a good football team.
Yeah, Ashley, that's always kind of the test, right? Is repeatability. Can you do it? So you did it once and you made real progress, and we're seeing it. We're so obviously seeing that progress he's making week to week. And it's like lightning fast, some of it, right? He goes from the Niners game where it's like, oh, this doesn't look so good, to now all of a sudden he's climbing the pocket. He's throwing the football away. He's not making the big mistakes, save for that interception. So that's sort of the next step, is that repeatability. Now, can you do it against the Bears? Can you do it against the Bills? That's when you really start to let yourself think, well, maybe the Browns do have something here. And to Mary Kay's point, maybe they don't need to spend a really high pick on a quarterback in the draft.
It is. And look, like the sample size is going to be what it is. But why I think this week in particular is a good test to see if Shedeur can, take some of those points, really learn from them, not make the same mistake twice, is something we talked about earlier in the week. Mary Kay wrote about it, but the Bears are so good at taking the football away. They lead the league with 27 total takeaways. They lead the league with their net plus 17, and they lead the league with just 18 interceptions. It is bonkers. So they are going to, I think, put up a fight when it comes to trying to take that football away and make a guy who has been pretty accurate, save for that big mistake type of play, make him make some mistakes, make him show that he is a rookie. I think that's going to probably be what they try to do out there. And if he can avoid turning the ball away, avoid throwing the same kind of interception, I think that's definite progress with how well this defense has been playing in that regard.
Yeah, and I love the fact, Mary Kay, that these 4 starts are going to come against pretty good football teams. Now, we can argue about Cincinnati and where they're going to be, but with Chicago, with Buffalo, with Pittsburgh, these are teams that are truly fighting for something. And I think that's a good thing to sort of sit back here and, forget the defensive rankings and all that stuff. These teams are fighting for something. And I think that makes it more interesting to evaluate Shedeur.
Right, because once you get into December football, you are talking about almost playoff caliber football at this time of year. If you look at the NFC North standings, you can see that those Chicago Bears are in a dogfight, right? They're coming off of a loss to the Packers. They're bunched up there in their division. They have an opportunity to win the division and get home field advantage, and they know what is at stake. And I think that they're going to be still ticked off that they just lost a very, very important football game. And they know what the Cleveland Browns are coming in here. If you listen to the quotes coming out of Chicago, they understand what Myles Garrett is about. They know what this Jim Schwartz defense is about. And they also know that Shedeur Sanders can go out there and hurt a football team because he's throwing touchdown passes. And he's going to continue to do that if you give him any little bit of window of opportunity to do that. And this is the 27th ranked defense that he's playing. So this is not, the number 1 or number 2 defense in the NFL. This is a defense that its calling card is taking the ball away. That's what it does really well, but it's going to give up yards. It will give up a bunch of yards, and it will give up both rushing yards and passing yards. So if he can just stay away from the interceptions, he can be onto something here.
Yeah, and I think to something else that's interesting here, and reading through their quotes, the way that they're sort of creating an urgency for this football game is interesting, and it makes sense because you look at their schedule. So they're coming off this loss to the Packers, and this is a sandwich game. They play the Packers next week. And then they play the 49ers, and then they play the Lions. So there's some really big, important games coming up for this football team. I mean, they're on Saturday Night Football and Sunday Night Football the next 2 weeks after this. So Ben Johnson actually is making sure that the Bears are not overlooking the Cleveland Browns, that they're not going to be sitting there in January thinking, man, if only we hadn't lost that stupid December game to the Browns when it was 5 degrees outside.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where it's a tough time to catch this team. Look, I think in that division, that NFC North, obviously such a good division last year, a good division this year, but it has switched up a little bit. The Bears aren't the little brother that everyone else is just kicking around. So they're really fighting for something, fighting for that division, fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC. And they are not going to want to let the Browns beat them, Shedeur Sanders beat them. So it's a good matchup, I think. And to your point, Dan, like these are some strong teams and strong opposing quarterbacks that Shedeur Sanders is going to be going up against to end the year.
All right. So, Ashley, what is your storyline for this game?
Yeah, well, let's go to the other side of the ball. We talked about this when we set up the week, but I'm really curious now, a few days removed from the defensive performance against the Titans, how this Browns defense is going to bounce back, especially against the run, because, the talking point this week, and, you do sort of agree with this. A lot of the damage done by the Titans came on 2 runs for Tony Pollard. They were both touchdowns, 65 yards and 35 yards. The Browns gave up 184 rushing yards in that game, 161 to Pollard. Now, where I think that truth kind of stops, though, is in rewatching that game, you saw what the Titans were able to do on the edge and do outside of the tackles with their offense. And you do have to wonder with Ben Johnson, obviously one of those great younger offensive minds, newer offensive minds in the league, what they are going to take from that game and try to implement. And they have DeAndre Swift, they have Kyle Monengai. Swift 837 yards, Monengai 648 yards. They each have 5 rushing touchdowns. Caleb Williams, obviously, he's the escape artist. He can use his legs when he needs to. So I'm curious to see, okay, was this really just that one off? Like I think it is, based on what we've seen from this defense so far. They've not had many breakdowns like that. But I do think the Bears are going to try to test that theory. Was it just 2 runs?
Yeah, and I thought the way Jim Schwartz explained it today was it's sort of what it looked like, right? So on that first one, he said we look like the Keystone Cops out there, right? I mean, you had Ronnie Hickman and Mahmoud Diabate running into each other, and we did a film break. Lance did a film breakdown earlier this week on it as well. So that felt right. And then that second one, I did wonder, like, did they just catch the Browns in a bad call? And I think that was part of it. And he said they caught us in a blitz, and guy finds a huge hole, and there's nobody back there to help. But to that point, Mary Kay, there's no excuse for giving up those plays. And that's really kind of what Jim got at. That's what Carson Schlesinger got at today. And also, they I think it was Jim that said this. They kind of allowed the Titans to continue running the football. And we know that Ben Johnson, from his time in Detroit, we always think of these great offensive minds as like the passing game, but he's always been a run the football guy. And that Detroit offense under him was really built around that 2-headed monster in Detroit. So this is a guy that's going to run the football. And if he sees some blood in the water and he sees some opportunities, he's going to get after it in this run game and test to see if the Browns really fixed what those issues were.
That's right. I mean, it is absolutely a copycat league, and they already come into this game with the number 2 rushing attack with 152 yards per game. So it's not like they have to try to manufacture some kind of a running game. They have the running game, and all they have to do is look at the Titans film to see what the blueprint is and how they did that. So the Browns are going to have to counterattack and figure out what they can do. Of course, this was the first game without Malik Collins, and I thought they suffered from that. And they will adjust to that. And now they understand and they know that is an area that they've got to shore up by Sunday. They've added Mo Hurst and a couple of other guys. And they know they've got to roll some other guys in there. And they have to protect those edges and not let those backs get on the outside this way. But once again, this is a game that's going to be played in very, very extreme conditions. I think running the ball is probably going to be what they focus on. The Browns are going to have to be ready for that. But also, we know that Caleb Williams can do some pretty extraordinary things. And so I wouldn't be just planning for a healthy dose of the run. I think it'll be kind of a balanced attack.
Yeah, Ashley, the Mo Hurst thing is interesting. And I know you had a chance to talk to him today. Like this team, I don't want to say they were set at defensive tackle. Obviously, you lose Malik Collins, but they had depth there at that position. And of course, Sam Kamara kind of is a hybrid inside outside guy. So bringing back Mo Hurst is interesting. And I just wonder if that's Jim Schwartz sitting there saying, like, we got to do something with this run defense. And I really liked what this guy did with us last year. I wonder if he's going to be up and active this week.
Yeah, it's so interesting. That's why I wanted to talk to him and why I wanted to write a little story about him that's going to go up on Friday, because that's kind of what I think it means as well. Like, there's 4 weeks left in the season. I mean, to me, that's not a move, signing a veteran guy like this, unless you plan to elevate him or sign him off the practice squad, something like that. Because like Mo Hurst has just been a free agent. He wasn't anywhere. He was training in Dallas. If they wanted to just do him a favor and get him on the practice squad, they could have done that weeks or months ago even. So I think they intend to use him. I think they should use him. I mean, I've on this podcast compared his sort of career to Malik Collins in the sense that they played in similar systems. Those two guys were teammates in Vegas for a year, even with the Raiders. So they just have that background. Now, Mo Hurst's career has been kind of snake bitten, especially here by these injuries. It's been unfortunate, but I think asking him to contribute in a backup role for 4 weeks is not asking too much. And I think they always I think really liked him from the time he got here in 2023. He was a guy who I think a lot of people expected to be on the bubble or to get cut. And it was very evident even back then that they were running him through with the ones and drills. So I think he could help out this run defense if needed. And I asked him, I said, are you ready if they need to elevate you on Sunday? And he kind of laughed. And his answer made me think even more that, hey, this could very much be in the cards for this Bears game.
Okay. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Time is a flat circle, whatever you want to say. Let's talk Myles Garrett and the sack record here. Last week, we talked about it that, hey, maybe he's going to break that record and get 4 sacks on Sunday against the Titans. I think it was Steve Mariucci on NFL Network or whatever he's on said he was going to get 8 sacks against the Titans. So at least we didn't go that far. He ends up getting 1. Now, look, if he gets 1 every week, he'll break the record. But what's interesting, Mary Kay, is in my mind, I thought you're playing Cam Ward, you're playing Caleb Williams. Both of those guys will hold the football. They'll give you opportunities. So he only gets 1 against Cam Ward. He's getting the ball out fast. They're running the football. Jim Schwartz today talking about Caleb Williams, eyes in the back of his head, does a great job avoiding when it seems like he's dead in the water, does a great job of avoiding it. So is Myles going to be able to get 3 this week? I wouldn't put anything past him. Then you're playing Josh Allen. Josh Allen will hold the football, but he's real tough to bring down. Then you're playing Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to get the ball out in like 1.5 seconds. And then you've got the Bengals. So what I'm saying is, Myles is going to get this record, but whereas a week ago we were like, oh yeah, he's going to get this against Tennessee, and if he doesn't, he'll definitely get it against Chicago. Now I'm starting to wonder, like, these teams are coming into this with this idea of we're not going to let him get it against us. And I don't think there's a Brett Favre waiting to fall down for him to help him out in the last game of the season, like he did Michael Strahan. So again, I'm not saying he's not going to get it, but it gets a little interesting if maybe he only gets, if he gets shut out in this football game for some reason.
Well, Caleb Williams is already on record this week as saying that he's going to do every single thing in his power to not let Myles Garrett get this sack record on him. He does not want to be part of the NFL films or the 30 for 30 when they do this on Myles Garrett and they show him getting the record. He does not want to be part of that, and he's going to try to get that ball out quickly. And of course, we know that they are going to run the ball, but because we were even certain that he was going to get it last week, and now we're thinking he's probably not going to get it this week, we can go reverse psychology.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
And think he will get it this week. So anything can happen, right? He would need 3 to get it this week. And they actually have a good left tackle. And Ben Johnson, as you mentioned, is a really, really smart head coach. And he's going to know how to chip and double and do whatever else it takes, because there are formulas out there whereby you can mitigate the damage that Myles Garrett can do. I mean, remember, before he went on this blistering tear, he went 4 games with a half a sack. 3 games, he was shut out completely. So all you have to really do is go back and look at those games and see what those teams did. And a lot of it was quick game. A lot of it was quick game until they got up to New England. And Mike Vrabel was like, no, we're not going to worry too much about that. We want enough people out in patterns and things like that, that we're not going to worry too much about what Myles Garrett is going to do, because we think we can beat them anyways, right? So we'll have to see what the strategy is on Sunday, but it can go either way. He can get 1 sack, 2 sacks, 3 sacks, 5. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, now look, the thing he is working in his favor is, what does this team have left to play for? And when we start to list those things, at the top of the list is, hey, let's at least get Myles Garrett this sack record. And we've talked to a bunch of defensive guys, Ashley, and I know Alex Wright talked about it on Monday. Grant Delpit has talked about it. Mason Graham jokes about it every week. These guys are willing to pitch in and kind of help Myles Garrett get this record. So he's got that going for him too. But now all of a sudden we go from, yeah, he'll get 4 against Cam Ward to like, oh, maybe this might take a little longer than we think.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting, right? After that Titans game, where it just seemed like it was written that he was going to break the record in that game, just knowing how many sacks they had given up. They led the league. Cam Ward, no one had been sacked as many times as Cam Ward had been sacked. So yeah, I think everyone is going to be trying to do everything they can to help Myles Garrett out to make sure he gets that record. But again, it's going to be tough this week with such a good coach on the other side. Obviously, the weather situation being what it's going to be, minus in the teens or minus the 20s. Who even knows what it's going to be? I have to imagine already the passing game for both these teams is going to be impacted. So that's the other element in all of this that I'm curious about, the actual elements.
Yeah, listen, the weather, the cold, I was thinking, am I going to walk a couple blocks to get a Chicago style pizza on Saturday? I don't even know if I'm going to have the guts to do that. So I don't know about these guys who actually have to play in this weather. We are going to take a break on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Lance Reisland is going to join us to give us his scouting report on the Bears. Then we'll be back and we will make our picks for Sunday in Chicago. Welcome back to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Our Browns Bears preview continues, and as we do every week, we welcome on Lance Reisland to get a scouting report. Lance, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Dan. How are you tonight, buddy?
Doing well. All right, let's get after it here. Browns at Bears on Sunday. It is going to be frigid at Soldier Field, and let's start with Shedeur. Actually, no, let's not start with Shedeur Sanders. Let's start with Caleb Williams. We've been talking so much about Shedeur.
Is he the quarterback of the Browns?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
He'll be playing in this game, I hear. But we're going to talk about Caleb Williams. What are you seeing from Caleb here in year 2? Obviously, his first year working with Ben Johnson. I know his completion percentage is not great, but what are you seeing out of Caleb?
Well, you're seeing what Ben Johnson's really, really elite in play scheming. So what he does for Caleb Williams is he kind of maximizes his strengths. And Caleb's a guy who's can be loose with his fundamentals. He can be loose in the pocket. He can do some of the things that people talk about with Shedeur in terms of holding the ball and crazy stuff. But he's gotten better, and he's picking and choosing when he's doing that, and that's very important. But the thing that I think Ben Johnson does a really great job with him is that he realizes he has an elite athlete with elite arm talent. So you'll see him move the pocket, and you'll see a lot of one-man reads based on coverage. Where he can let the ball rip. And I think what Ben Johnson, for me, when I watched Caleb Williams last year, years before, and this year, is the idea of when he knows where he's going with the football, that kid can spin it. Really spin it. And when you have confidence where you're going with the ball, that's what I think Ben Johnson has done. So he simplified it for him. He's allowed Caleb Williams to use his athleticism. And you'll get an RPO from Ben Johnson where it's a one-man read. If that backer comes, pull it and use your arm talent because you know where you're going with the ball. So I would say the good way to look at it is that he creates such a pre-snap window for Caleb that Caleb has really believes in what he's seeing when he delivers the ball post-snap.
So Jim Schwartz was saying today that this is a group that they do take shots down the field. That's part of the completion percentage. You take a lot of shots, your completion percentage might be a little bit lower. Tell me a little bit about how they attack in the air and, some of the weapons. We know about Roma Dunze, some of the other guys that people need to watch out for in that passing game.
We got a Dunze, you got DJ Moore, who's an excellent talent. DJ Moore's a guy who can play inside and out. Dunze is a guy who's really, really long. Again, guy you and I, me and Tim talked about going to draft. Long guy, plays really well in space. Him and DJ Moore are really good at the catch point. And that's what allows them. I think that's why they throw the ball deep so much. They're really, really good 50-50 ball guys. And that really helps a young quarterback, because it's what you're looking for Shedeur Sanders. Those two kind of give you the get out of jail free card. I don't know what's going on. I know it's single coverage. It might not look right. I'm throwing it up to those guys, which could be really good this week, but it could be really bad too, because the Browns played that pretty well. I love Loveland out of Michigan. You know how high it was on him when he came out. He's a guy who gives you very Fannin-like ability. I don't think he's as good as Fannin, if you want to know the truth, but he does give you like the big receiver, so you can put him in the slot. He can. He's too fast for a linebacker. He's really good in space. He doesn't block really well in line, but again, I think Ben Johnson, like Schwartz, he doesn't ask players. And once again, as a coach, I've done this before too. You take a guy and you go, "We got to fix this." These guys don't do that. And that's what I've learned about the NFL, and I'm still learning, which is what I love about doing what I'm doing now, is they don't care what they do wrong, per se. They're going to focus on their strengths and then work on the other things. And Loveland's a good guy in space. And you got Luther Burden. Now, you know how I feel about Luther Burden. He was on my draft board. I tried to sell you and Tim for months on Luther Burden, but what he gives them that gadget guy, the guy that can run the fly sweeps, the jet sweeps, the motions, the inside option routes. He gives you a home run guy over the top. He's a seam guy. He does a lot of different things, bubble guy. So Ben Johnson has all these pieces. But what they've done on offense is they've shored up that middle of that offensive line. When you think about Tooney, Dahlman, and Johnson, those guys are really good inside. Their pass protection has gotten a lot better. So they simplified their pass schemes. They simplified what they do up front. They chip a lot more this year. They're trying to protect their quarterback by going more protections. Every route, everything that we throw in football, always starts off with a 5-man protection. If you can't block it, you got to take out a receiver. You go 6-man protection. Got to block it more. You go 7-man protection. That's at every level of football if people are trying to throw the ball successfully. Ben Johnson's not afraid to run the ball down your throat, go 7-man protection, and then take a shot over top, knowing Caleb Williams has confidence in his arm, and he believes in those guys in the 50-50. So that's where those deep balls are coming, because they're establishing the run, they're max protection, and they're throwing it over the top.
So I think that's one of the misconceptions about Ben Johnson. And just sometimes this happens with great play callers. People think, oh, the passing attack, the aerial game, right? But Ben Johnson, if you go back to those Detroit teams, it really was built around those powerful backs and that powerful run game, and everything kind of worked off of that. Those were great running football teams. And that's certainly one thing he's already brought with him to Chicago.
Well, Ben Johnson is a guy I really respect, a play caller, because I love watching innovative play callers, but he believes, well, I believe what he believes, because that would, because he's the pro. But the idea of balance is not 50-50. So many people say we got to run the ball and we got to have great balance. Balance is doing what you want on offense, regardless of down and distance, having confidence in what you do. And that's what Ben Johnson does the best of. And I think he's always trying to get you a second medium. But if you think, if you're defensively and you think that's what I'm trying to do, then he's going to throw the ball. He takes what the defense gives him. He creates his own balance. And like Schwartz, this is a very cool matchup. Like Schwartz, he usually doesn't let the defense dictate what they're doing. So this is a the proverbial rock and a hard, they're both not going to give in. It's going to be, you're going to see a lot of man coverage. You're going to see a lot of jump balls. You're going to see, as good as they run the ball, I don't think they'll have a ton of success against the Browns, but you're going to see a lot of 4-man. You're going to see the run game. You're going to see a lot of what happened last week at the Titans. Why? Because it's a copycat league and the Titans had success on the edge.
So let's look at that Bears defense. Obviously, statistically, maybe not a great defense. They've really, though, lived with turnovers. They have the most turnovers forced in the league. Tell me about this defense, and are there areas where should the Browns try to attack this defense, I guess?
Well, patience is how they're going to attack this defense. So they got, I think, Grady Jarrett's a great pickup from Atlanta. He's a disruptor inside. Montez Sweat's a guy Obviously, he's a veteran, long. He gives you that perfect kind of defensive end. The Jervon Dexter's the guy that we talked about coming out of Florida. He's the longest, freakish kid, 6'6", 330, 340. Austin Booker's a kid we liked out of Kansas. It's kind of nice when you go through this because we know the scouting report on these guys and how they fit with these teams. I think one of their big losses is Edmonds. They lost their leading tackler, Edmonds. He's out. He was a really good player going back early in the season. But Dennis Allen is really the key on defense. And what he's going to do is he's going to give them very similar pictures to what the 49ers did. They're going to do a lot pre-snap going into post-snap, right? They're going to change the picture a ton. They're also going to make Shedeur be very, very patient. This is an NFL defense where they say, we'll let you get to the 20, then we're going to turn up the heat. Very, very NFL style. Very, Dennis Allen's been doing it 30 years. And that's definitely his MO, where if you can be patient down the field, okay, we'll give you that. Then we're going to get you inside the 20. Then we're going to heat you up. And I think if the Browns can be patient and get inside the 20, they have some matchups that they can win with Fannin, with Njoku if he's healthy, Jerry Jeudy. They can win some of these matchups, but they have to be patient. So I think the thing you're going to see, if the Browns can be patient from 20 to 20, they're going to score some points, because I think that's kind of where Dennis Allen wants to get you. So when you talk about not needing elite talent, that's kind of what he does. He's going to say, I don't think you're patient enough to take dink and dunk me for 7 to 12 plays before you get in the red zone. And most people aren't. And then when you get greedy, that's when the interceptions happen.
So this sounds like a very interesting test for kind of how much progress Shedeur Sanders has actually made, like what we saw last week. Can he carry it over to this week then?
Well, and it's funny when you say, everybody said, what's the difference between man and zone as a quarterback? And I always say this as a guy who played quarterback and a guy who coaches quarterbacks. Man coverage, at least a quarterback knows where he's going with the football, and he knows what his footwork has to be like. That's what's hard for young quarterbacks. That's what's hard for all quarterbacks. Dennis Allen and these guys who have been doing it a long time, they're saying, you know what? We're going to make a quarterback change his feet, go through progressions, change the pre to post snap. So you have to do all these things with your fundamentals and your technique and your mechanics. Whereas in your man coverage, you don't always win, but your mechanics and your fundamentals are always really good. If you go back to the touchdown, the corner route, last touchdown to Fannin, the Browns were in 3-by-1. Shedeur did a great job of seeing that Fannin was on Woods. That was a mismatch. Watch his feet, watch his drop, watch how good it is, because he knows where he's going with the football. Now, it doesn't always mean that, it's easier to win in zone than it is on man, especially at the NFL level, but the quarterback's feet are always right in man because he knows where he's going with the football. That's going to be the next test for Shedeur. Can he move his feet and get his feet where they need to be, getting to a second or third progression?
Okay, so Lance, what's your pick for this game on Sunday?
I think you said it earlier, it's just like going back to the Miami game with weather. Weather is going to be an influence here. This is cold. They're saying minus 10 to 15 wind chill. So it's protecting the football. I got the Bears. I just don't think the Browns have enough offense just yet. And with this weather, can you be patient enough? So I got the Bears, but I got it close. I got a 21-17 Bears.
Okay, there we go. That is Lance Reisland giving us a scouting report on the Bears, as he does every week. Lance, we only got like 3 more of these, so I need some good, strong scouting reports from
I will
moving forward here.
I will keep them rolling. You got the Bears, you got the Bills, you got the Steelers. This is going to be a great kind of like, where are you at as an offense? Shedeur Sanders, where are you at as a possible starter in this league? Things like that, because you get, more importantly, you got 3 teams. I think you said this last night, actually. You have 3 teams that are in the playoff hunt. So you're going to get teams that are getting after it. They're not going through the motions. That's a great test for a young quarterback.
All right, we're going to take a break on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. You got Lance's pick. When we come back, Mary Kay and Ashley will rejoin me, and we will make our picks for Sunday's game. Thanks for the time, Lance.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Thanks to Lance for his scouting report. It is time now for us to make our picks. Ashley, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tough one for the Browns to win. And you can never say never, but you look at where these two teams are. The Browns, of course, totally out of the playoff picture at this point. They have 3 wins. The Bears fighting for all those things we talked about at the top of the podcast. Now, I do think the weather adds some interesting elements to this. Literally, I'll make the same joke I made in the first segment, because why not? And I think that's going to make this a lower scoring game. I think it's going to make this a hard fought win for whoever comes out on top. But knowing it's in Chicago, knowing what the Bears are playing for, knowing the little cracks in this defense that Ben Johnson got to see last week against the Tennessee Titans, I am going to pick the Chicago Bears in this one, and I'm going to keep it close. I'm going to keep it low scoring. Honestly, as I pick this score, I'm like, is that even a little too high? But I don't want to go much lower. I'm going the Bears 16-10.
Okay, there we go. So I did tell you guys, part of me wanted to pick the Browns to win this football game, but I can't do it. And there's a few reasons. Something we didn't talk about in the top was the offensive line. It's very much, there's a lot up in the air on that offensive line. Jack Conklin is still in concussion protocol. Wyatt Teller is out. So Tevin Jenkins will start there. It's going to be Luke Whippler starting at center. It's going to be Joel Bitonio at guard, Cam Robinson at tackle. But Tevin Jenkins showed up on the injury report on Thursday. As we're recording this, it's like 5:45. We don't know what his status is going to be. So now maybe it would be Zach Zinter, but he showed up on the injury report too, and he hasn't been able to get active. So who knows what this offensive line is going to look like. I do think this defense will bounce back. I think they're too good to have another game like that. But we also know Ben Johnson is going to poke at it and prod at it and try and find something, and I think he'll be able to. And the other thing that I just keep coming back to is, as long as the Bears don't let this become a trap game, it's just, this team is still fighting for so much, and the Browns are going to show up and they're going to fight. And but I don't know if in 5-degree temperatures, when we're deep into the second half, are they going to be able to match the Bears level of fight? Or are they going to be able to kind of stay to that level and continue to compete at the level the Bears are? Now, maybe Shedeur Sanders will, just having him out there and having so many young guys will kind of mitigate some of that. But I think it's really hard sometimes to match the intensity level of a team that is basically playing playoff games right now. So I'm going to take the Bears to win this game. I think it's going to be a close game too. I'll go a little higher scoring than Ashley did. I'll say that the Bears win this game. The Browns cover, Bears win. Let's go 20-17. Mary Kay, what do you have?
Well, clean sweep again for the .comers. I think we're all on the same page here that this will be a tough game for the Browns to win. Not impossible, because once again, I do think that, this is a football team that is 27th in defense, and Shedeur might be able to score some points on this team if he protects the football. And then, of course, we all know what the Browns defense is capable of. So I certainly don't think it's impossible for the Browns to come in here and pull off an upset, but I'm not going to pick it that way today, just because I think, once again, that these Bears have so much to play for, and they're at home, and they are not taking the Cleveland Browns lightly. And I think that's going to be very, very important here. I am taking the Bears to win 26-24. Every time we think it's going to be a low scoring game, it's not a low scoring game. So I think there will be some points scored somehow, some way. 26-24 Bears.
Okay, there we go. Our picks for Sunday's game. We will cover everything that happens there. Of course, the three of us will all be there. Cleveland.com/Browns is where you can find that. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Go search for Orange and Brown Talk. Find our YouTube channel as well. It's Cleveland Browns on Cleveland.com. You hit that podcasts tab there. You can see a bunch of our podcasts on video as well. And then if you're not a football insider, subscribe to Cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page to get involved with that. For Mary Kay, Ashley, Lance, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.